All right, we're back. And no, I did not just give Mr. Conway a haircut. This is all of the fur from our little friend here. So, as I said in the first video, I mentioned compacted fur. So what that means basically is that this is likely from more than one rodent. It could just be from one large rodent. I'll get into that in a second, but when that traveled through the owl's digestive system, all of this fur just kind of got squashed. It's something that your body does as you eat. You know, your digestion starts as soon as your food hits your mouth, and then your teeth and your saliva begin the digestive process. You swallow your food, it goes down to your stomach, and most people think that's where, like, you know, you absorb your nutrients and all that stuff. It starts there, but you really absorb more of your nutrients as the food goes through your small intestines, and then as it goes through your large intestine into your colon, it squeezes that food. I believe it's called chyme when it gets to your small intestine, and it's a bolus when it gets to your large intestine. I don't know, I'm just going off the top of my head there, but I think that's correct. In any case, this squeezing process is the same for the owl, and it compacted all that fur because it wants to make it as easy as possible to get rid of it. So, so it's kind of cool how, you know, that owl pellet that was, I don't know, a third of this size, when you pull the fur apart, you can see how much there actually is. Moving on to what we actually found here. So I left it all scattered out. I will organize this for my presentation, but just going through some of these, we have a skull here, and this is a pretty large skull. We measured it, my son and I measured it, it's about 5 centimeters, and you can tell that it's a rodent. You can see here, let's get a focus here. You can see those yellowy teeth, which, you know, it doesn't need crest white strips. It's just, rodents have yellow teeth. One cool thing about rodents is the teeth never stop growing. So they're always, and it's because they're always chewing stuff. And as they're chewing and chewing and chewing, they are wearing down their teeth. So, it's definitely a rodent. You can also tell its eye sockets are very large compared to the rest of its skull. And that is because it's an animal that typically is active at night. It's primarily a nocturnal animal. So those great big eyes are there to absorb as much sunlight as possible. And then when we turn it over, we can see those grinding teeth here. And here is where the brain would be. It is not much of a brain. It's a pretty small brain, but encased in the skull, that is where you would find the brain. We also have some larger bones here. These are certainly the femur of the mouse. The femur is, if you think about your own leg, the bone between your hamstring and your quadricep, like right between your knee and your hip. That is the largest bone in the human body, and you can see as you compare this bone, I mean, this bone is nearly as big as the skull. So this is a huge bone for what I think is probably a rat, not a mouse. We'll take some more measurements later, but so we have one femur here and one femur there. If you're thinking to yourself, oh, that kind of looks like a chicken bone, you're not wrong. And as part of my presentation, I'll talk about something called vestigial structures. There's similarities between a lot of things, and it's proof of evolution. Here are some more bones. I believe that this is probably the hip girder here. So they probably, I don't know, I think it's opposite of this, but they are somewhere just like this, probably the back legs. We have, this looks like a vertebrae. I believe it's a connective part of the vertebrae, and I think that this is the tail. So little Mortimer mouse or whatever the poor little rat's name was, this is what's left of his little tail, likely. And we have some other larger pieces of vertebrae here, and you can tell just by the way that they're shaped. If you look inside there. You can kind of see there's space inside. That is where the, let me try to put that down. That is where the spinal column travels. So we'll put all those together. I think that these little guys here are rib bones. You can tell that they're very thin. They have that curved shape, kind of like your ribs. Here's probably a lower leg bone. We have another, this looks like another kind of like a hip type bone. And here is part of the lower jaw. So we have the skull up here, and we have the upper jaw is attached to the skull, or the upper mouth rather. And then here's the lower jaw. So you have this sharp little tooth right here, and you have some more grinding teeth right here towards the back. But this will be something that we can actually glue right onto the mouse, and its teeth, or rat, and its teeth will interlock there. So we can take a look at that later. Another hip-like structure. Here's another part of the spine that's still intact. Again, it might be part of the tail. Maybe it's just the hair holding it together. And then we have some smaller bones here. Like, so these are likely like foot bones, I'm assuming. There's a lot of these little guys around here. So they're pretty tiny. One thing, if you have parents who are freaking out right now with the idea of this happening on their kitchen table, the owl pellets are actually sterilized with steam, so it doesn't smell like anything. It's not, I mean, it's a little messy, but I just put down some paper here. It doesn't smell like anything. It's not slimy or gross. It's totally dry. That's why we have all this nice fluffy fur. It's totally dry. It's really not gross at all. What is gross is when I found some fox scat in my yard once, and I did the exact same thing, and we pulled apart a whole bunch of bones. But that was also pretty awesome. So anyway, so here is what our owl pellet looks like, all taken apart, and some more pictures and putting the skeleton together will come later. Bye guys.